Helen is going to talk to us tonight, and she's going to talk to us about a few interesting things. One of them, which you might be curious about, is the sort of gear and stuff that you might need to acquire for sailing. And the other thing she's going to talk about, and it's something she's an expert in, is the running of races, and how and indeed why you should try and do at least a bit of racing. I assume you're going to say that, Helen.
Obviously I am.
So Helen, away you go.
One of the most important things about the gear that you have when you're going out on the water is that you need to be safe. And while you might think that that involves rescue boats and all sorts of other things, it actually also means a lot the clothes that you're wearing. So when we bring you out on the water, every single person who goes out from Skerries Sailing Club is wearing a life jacket or a buoyancy aid. And you're possibly wondering what's the difference between a life jacket and a buoyancy aid. A buoyancy aid is something like this. You can see it's padded. It goes over your head. It straps on. It clips on. And it fits you pretty much like a glove. The reason that it has to fit you like a glove is that if you fall into the water, you go down, your arms go up, and if it comes off, it's useless. A life jacket is, we use buoyancy aids on dinghies all the time. A life jacket tends to be one of those nice, I don't have one to show you, those kind of nice sleek things that you see cruiser sailors strutting around in. And they have a little canister of gas in them, and they explode when they hit the water and blow up and make a lovely floaty thing for you. You don't wear them on dinghies, because on dinghies they would explode all the time and you would be sitting in a very padded life jacket. The other things that you would need to wear, and we try not to, when we start you off at first, we try not to ask you to spend a lot of money. If you come along the first couple of weeks that we do just sailing, we would ask you to wear trainers that you don't mind getting destroyed in the water, because you are going to get wet. Leggings, not jeggings, not denim, not baggy, something that is tight fitting. A warm top, a fleece preferably, and a windproof jacket. On the warmest day out on the water, when you're sailing, it can be very cold in the wind. So you need to remember you need to be warm. You can always take stuff off, but if you start to get cold, hypothermia it sets in fairly quickly. A beanie hat, one of those nice pull down over your ears, is very good. It also is great protection against the boom when your skipper decides to tack and you haven't heard properly and the boom suddenly slides across. Not that it ever happens, of course. Gloves. I did have loads of pictures. I'm sorry, I just had a bad weekend and my technology just went bad on me. There are sailing gloves. You'll be told to, you know, pull in that jib sheet or hang out of this sheet or whatever, rope. Gloves are great for stopping your hands getting shredded by said sheets or ropes. If you do decide to get more involved in sailing, if you're sailing in dinghies, then a wetsuit is a very good purchase. The ones that you can get in Lidl and Aldi are perfectly fine. There's also Decathlon, which is, it used to be only online, but I think they're now, not entirely sure, but I'm almost certain that they have opened their shop up by IKEA. But you can have a look online, Decathlon. There's loads of stuff on there and they're very good value. They're also very good value for your buoyancy aids or for windproof jackets, hats, loads of sailing gear. Footwear, if you are going to get more involved in dinghy sailing, there are little neoprene booties. They're kind of like wetsuit booties. The biggest thing on a dinghy, the biggest problem on a dinghy is that you're going to get caught in stuff. If your gear is floppy or baggy, or if you're wearing, some people tend to wear little kind of almost like baby Wellington boots on a dinghy. Not a good idea. So it's very important that, you know, you're wearing stuff that is, you're conscious that you're not, it's not going to hinder you if you capsize. The other thing that people don't always think of in Ireland is sunscreen. Always, if you're up on a Saturday morning, I'll be there with my tube of Factor 50 offering it around to everybody. Neil Anderson just posted up there, gloves with the tops of the fingers missing. Sometimes they come with these 3 fingers covered, but just your finger and thumb open from here to here. You need that because you've got to do fiddly stuff. So if you can imagine trying to put in a pair of pierced earrings with a pair of woolly gloves on, you don't want that. You want to have your actual fingers on, because there's lots of fiddly bits on dinghies. Yeah, sunscreen, very important. And also, when it's not so cold, a hat. You definitely need to protect your scalp and the back of your neck from the sun. And you need to tie your hat onto your life jacket or your gear so that when the wind blows it off, it doesn't go flying off into the water. And yes, Neil, also water is very important to bring you. I am a race officer in Skerries. I am a race officer on Wednesdays and Saturdays and Sundays. And we absolutely love seeing boats come out to race. It takes as many people out on the water working to run a race for 5 boats as it does for 15 boats. So if we can encourage you to come out and race, we do not expect you to be up there with the top of the fleet. That's never an issue. We give the juniors and yourselves, we do different, we don't do different courses for you, but we give you a shorter course. Generally, when you're racing, the way we do it in Skerries, generally when we do racing in Skerries, we do an Olympic course, which is you are beating, as Gerry has taught you, up to a weather mark, which is upwind, and then you reach over to a jibe mark, and then you reach down to a leeward mark, and then you beat up again to a weather mark or a finish. We then run down to the leeward mark and then back up to the weather mark and then repeat the first triangle. So it's a triangle, sausage, triangle. You get so much more experience sailing when you're out racing. If you've done 5 or 6 Saturdays with us and then you come out to race, you will get far more experience just out racing, because you've got an objective to get to. There are other people out there that you can see, am I going faster than them? Am I going slower than them? Why do I think I'm going faster than them or slower than them? If you're going faster than them, well, you're obviously doing everything right. If you're going slower than them, maybe you can ask somebody when you come ashore, what could I have done differently? And that is one of the lovely things about Skerries, that everybody, when we come ashore, we all talk about, it's a very sociable club. Everybody will say to you, you know, I saw you were out there, thanks for coming out, it was great. But you know, when you were doing this, maybe if you tried it a little bit differently, it would have helped you better. And I would say that everybody in Skerries Sailing Club is very, very encouraging of new people. Also, I do know that from talking to people, beginners in the past, that the biggest worry that they had is that they get in the way of the really, really good sailors. We do have some absolutely fantastic sailors in Skerries and fantastic racers, and Gerry obviously is one of them. But nobody minds if you accidentally get in their way. And trust me, the really, really top-notch ones, you're not going to be anywhere near the start line when they are, because they're going to be across it in a flash. They will just be so happy to see you out there. They will encourage you. I'm talking mostly about dinghy sailing just at the moment. The way we communicate for racing is with flags, and I don't know if any of you actually downloaded the Racing Rules of Sailing that I put the link to a while back. The the first 2 pages of that are a myriad of flags. I came to sailing at the tender age of 42. I thought the flags all looked really pretty. Now I'm a very sad person and I can tell you what they all mean. You don't need to know what they all mean, but we don't, because you're out on the water and it's noisy, you've got wind in your ear and you've got sails flapping, you've got people shouting. The way we communicate and start races and finish races and communicate with sailors during races, we can't shout to you. And when you're on a dinghy, you don't have a radio. So we communicate via flags. You don't really need to know an awful lot about the flags just at the moment. If you are going to come out sailing, I promise I will give you the 5 or 6 flags that you need to know, and you'll know them. With cruisers, it is exactly the same, except that we are allowed to communicate with cruisers. Cruisers are the big boats and generally 6 or 7 crew on board. We can communicate with them as race officers. We can communicate with them by radio. But once the race starts, we can only communicate by flags. And there are lots of different flags, which someday when it's a very, very wet Saturday morning in Skerries and you're all eating nice cake and drinking coffee, I'll go into a lot of those. I think for the moment, that's probably about it.
To reinforce, I suppose, what Helen has said, racing, you may not be in this, with us, with the ambition of going racing. All you probably want to do is float around the bay on a sunny day, and that's fine. We're all in favor of that and we all support that. But to get you to the stage where you can confidently go out on your own and sail around the bay, or go over to Byrne for a picnic, or up to Balbriggan for ice cream on your own, a little bit of racing will do no harm, and we'll keep an eye on you. If 2 or 3 of you, or 4 or 5 of you, or however many of you decide to take out a boat and come out and sail in a race, we'll notify one of the rescue boats, which will keep an eye on you. We'll shepherd you along, like, the little ducklings, and make sure you don't get lost and that sort of thing. You're probably in the early stages, probably never going to finish a race in your first few efforts, but we will still give you a place. We will assume you have finished and give you a place. And you have
we have ways. Sorry, Gerry, if I could just interrupt. My job will always be to ascertain what place you would have got if you'd managed to finish based on it. So yeah, we cater for you. And also, one of the other things that I didn't say, if you come out racing, we always have ample rescue on the water. We have ribs on the water. A rib is a rigid inflatable boat with 2 people on it who are there literally to lay marks and rescue people. So it is one of the safest ways to go out sailing, because we have plenty of bodies on the water looking after you.
Absolutely, Helen. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And to reinforce Helen's point too, you worry about getting in the way. If only, those other guys are going to be over the horizon before you get across the starting. But yeah, you're not going to get in anybody's way. Let me tell you about that. And if anybody swears at you, Helen and I want to hear about you, because you're not allowed to swear at anybody on our race course. That's a fact. But the beauty of sailing is, as Helen has said, is you're supervised. There's somebody there to look at our racing. I mean, say there's somebody there, as Helen has actually explained, somebody there to look after you. There's people there if it's a quiet day. There'll be somebody driving their little boat along behind you, giving you tips and things like that. And the beauty of it is you will get far more experience than you would get in a collection of Saturday mornings sailing with us on Just Sailing. It's terrific fun. You don't need to take it seriously. We take it very seriously sometimes. I mean, Jesus Christ, we disappear up our own arses the odd occasion when it comes to sailing and racing rules and all that sort of thing. But it is meant to be fun, and really we want you to do it and to take fun. There is plenty of boats for you to use. Our ambition is that you'll all go out and buy boats at some stage of your sailing careers. But in the meantime, there are, what have we got, Helen, 6 or 7 or 8?
Oh, we have a Wayfarer, we have 2
No,
Topazes, we have an Omega, we have a Magno,
you
have
have 7
a
or 8.
Stratus.
Yeah.
That's 7, isn't it?
Yeah, plus a small
Yeah.
cruise.
Yeah.
So,
oh, plus the small cruiser, which is new to us this year. Oh, and a Mermaid. God, yeah, we've loads.
So we've loads of boats. There is never going to be a shortage of places for you to get out sailing if you take those boats out. Otherwise, you're going to be relying on somebody being without crew. I'll always take one of you guys out sailing if my own crew isn't available. Don't worry about that. We'll try and take it in turns. And 1 or 2 of the others will do the same for you. But you're never going to get the same sort of consistent sailing experience doing that, because you're relying on other people breaking their legs and unpleasant things, you know, which you don't really.
Or going on holidays or something ridiculous like that.
Holidays, yeah. Life is a holiday. So the boats are there. Take them out, use them. Now, you're used to the boats on Saturday mornings when Helen and I hold the Just Sailing thing, and Kieran indeed as well. I don't know if he's there today, but the use of the boats is free, okay? Now, we do like a small contribution towards maintenance and that sort of thing, because they are expensive things to fix and to maintain, and they have to be insured. So we'll ask you for a tenner a head every time you take a boat out. So that could be a single-handed boat, or it could be 2 or 3 of you in a boat. It could be 2 or 3 of you in a boat, tenner each, and which is not much for an afternoon or an evening's fun. We sail on Wednesday evening. We sail on Sunday mornings. That's the principal. They're the principal days we sail, and we also there's the occasional cup race on Saturday afternoon. We won't encourage you to go out racing if it's very windy. We will encourage you to go out racing if it's light or medium. You know.
In fact, we will actively discourage you to go out if there is a possibility that it is unsafe.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You won't necessarily have to make the call if Gerry or Kieran or myself are concerned, or one of the other race officers is concerned. We will say no.
Do it at some stage. Try and get out for a few races. Get out with 1 or 2 other, you know, people around the room. You should be looking around and saying, "I'd love to go sailing with Greg." You know, and I can see Patricia sitting there beside Greg, and they'd make a great team, you know, and Karen isn't around, you never know. So you'll have fun, and it's the best fun you'll have with your clothes on, honestly, really is. And push yourself that little bit, you know. As we've explained to you, every Saturday morning we'll go sailing, providing the government lets us, of course, but we'll try and have fun other days as well. I think we're sort of rapidly running out of time. So has anybody got any questions? Can we switch everybody on again?
Do you sail in a wetsuit, or do you have a all-weather gear?
I sail in a wetsuit all the time. There are days I go out sailing and it's a lovely sunny Sunday, and there's a warm, balmy breeze blowing, and I'm sweating like a pig, and I say, why did I put this fucking wetsuit on? But it's as a precaution. It's for the same reason as you wear a life jacket. The wetsuit is beautiful in that if you do fall in the water, and most of you never will, incidentally, you'll never fall in the water. I know we talk about sailing, you know, avoiding danger and all that sort of thing, but I'm just looking at you, you'll never fall in the water. You know? But a wetsuit is great. You're in the water for up to a half an hour before you feel cold. Without a wetsuit in this climate, even before you're 5 minutes in the water, you're shivering and screaming to be taken out of it.
You're asking about full all-weather gear. I assume you mean sort of salopettes and the whole jacket and the works. That's not good on a dinghy. That's good on a cruiser, perhaps. But on a dinghy, you want to be much neater. The reason being, if you have a big jacket on, it's going to get caught in the boom, the main sheet and the boom and all sorts of things. So you want to be as neat as possible on a dinghy.
And is a 5mm wetsuit about right?
No, 5 mil is probably too much. Certainly, if you're going sailing in March and April and October and November, 5 mil is grand. But 3 mil is usually what most of us wear. 5 mil is great on a cold day, and it's great if you want to spend any time in the water. But it's almost a diving quality suit. 5 mil. If that's all you've got, wear it. You know, no problem. But on a very hot day, you'll notice it.
Sort of mid-July into August, yeah, there's quite a lot of jellies in Skerries. Yeah, a wetsuit's good to protect you from the jellies if you fall in.
Yeah, I spent a summer in Darwin in Northern Australia last year where there are lots of jellyfish, including the box jellyfish, which can kill you. And everybody wears a very, very light wetsuit, even though it's in the tropics, when they go dinghy sailing, simply to protect them against jellyfish stings. You know. And jellyfish here can be a bit of a problem, and they can be nasty. We get this mean critter called a lion's mane jellyfish, big brown thing, and that has tentacles sort of 3 or 4 foot long, and you get some of that. Even pulling up an anchor on the committee boat, at certain times of the year, you're advised to wear gloves, because you can get the stings will land on your hand. You mightn't realize it. They drift past the ropes, and the stings pull off their bodies and get entangled around the ropes. So when you're pulling up the anchor, you get stung on your hands. And then you might do a silly thing like wipe your eyes with the hand that has just been stung with jellyfish. Some days we see dolphins out there, which is beautiful, and seals, and
yes,
rare seabirds, and as well as the old jellyfish. You know, so the nature out there is fantastic. I never cease to be amazed at what you'll see on a day of sailing.